Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's presentation by the American Topical Association. Our program today is Going Postal Dinosaurs on Stamps. This is going to be a presentation of how a collector got started, what the material is, and what can be out there that is interesting. Our presenter is Jon Noad. He's a senior paleontologist with Stantec Consulting. He's been a geologist and paleontologist for many years and a stamp collector for many years. So this should be fun. And with that, at this point, I will turn it over to Jon. So Jon, the stage is yours.
Well, thank you very much, everybody. Welcome to the presentation. I'm sitting here in Calgary, Alberta, for those who are interested. And today I'm going to be talking about dinosaurs on stamps. And normally I just pass over the title slide, but it's such a lovely example of a set of dinosaur stamps. It was issued by the United States in 1989. And there's two very nice features about this. And one is that they incorporated this lovely little logo on the right here, Stamposaurus, which was used to help publicize the issue. Obviously, dinosaur issues are designed to appeal to children and to young adults like me. And so they were trying to get as much mileage out of this as they could. And the other nice thing about this is that I have a version of the artwork from John Gersh, who designed the stamps on the left there. So you've got a chance to compare one of the other versions that was made to show what the stamps look like when they're in their final version. So just to introduce things, there are two versions of thematic and topical collecting. So topical collecting is just a collection by subject. So you collect railways, you collect bridges, you collect wines on stamps. Whereas thematic collecting is using a topic to tell a story. And so you're not focusing on the stamps themselves, but you're actually using the stamps to bring out other features and other concepts. And examples might be the history of dinosaur collecting, geography of dinosaur discoveries, both of which I've presented on in the past, and dinosaur lifestyles. And the nice thing about thematic collecting is it gives you a chance to collect whatever you want. When you're collecting thematic stamps, one of the problems is that you are collecting your theme. And so I'm collecting dinosaurs, but there are also country collectors who are only interested in the country itself. So they'll be buying just the Tanzania dinosaurs for their Tanzania collection, or the German dinosaur stamps for their collection. So when you're bidding on eBay and things like that, you're up against country collectors, not just other thematic collectors. And the other big challenge that I come across is that there are thousands of wallpaper stamps up there, all kinds of fakes, semi-fakes, semi-real stamps, which you have to make a decision on whether or not to collect. And the nice thing is you have the choice. So my collection started off at the Odeon stamp shop in Uxbridge. I managed to find a picture of it. So this is about 50 years ago when I used to go to the stamp shop with my parents. It was actually obviously in a cinema, which the Odeon cinema. That's me, I think, when I was about 8 years old, that photograph there. And I bought quite a few stamps in those days, but I wasn't a thematic collector. So I hadn't really started collecting dinosaurs themselves. And then, like so many collectors, my collection lapsed in my teens, my 20s, and then into my 30s. And then I had this fateful moment when I started studying for a master's in London. And I was living in Southampton, so I was traveling up on the train, and I went past this hotel, the Strand Hotel in the Strand, very close to where Stanley Gibbons' offices are. And I saw a sign for a stamp fair. This is the stamp fair sign right here. And I wandered into this thematic stall, and I asked if they had any dinosaurs, and they had 3 albums full of dinosaur stamps, and I was absolutely blown away. And I spent about £300 that afternoon, where I'd actually just planned to go in for a few minutes to have a look around. And that's what got me restarted with collecting. And since then, I've collected many, many more dinosaur stamps through the years. In the early days, I wrote to a lot of dealers because there was no internet in those days, but then since then, we've had the advent of eBay, Hipstamp, Delcamp, and other online sources that you can look at to try and increase your collection. So my collection, I have more than 10,000 different dinosaur stamps and numerous other postal items. My favorites are the original artwork, which is usually very difficult to get hold of. I've got an example here from Niuafu or Tonga, where you can see that the artwork on the right-hand side here is that center panel. So it's not actually the stamps themselves, but it's the center panel from this issue. I have a bias towards early stamps, and we'll see why that is a little bit later on. And basically my collection is complete in terms of all of the mint legal dinosaur stamps out there, but I'm continuing to look for rare items, and I focus now more on eBay and on thematic auctions when they take place. And I've had some bad situations where I've ended up buying 500 first day covers in an auction just to get the one that I need for my collection, which is always a little bit painful. And so I'm hoping that when I retire, finally, I'll be able to go back on eBay and try and sell some of those off. So eBay has had a huge impact on thematic collectors around the world, and in fact, collectors of any topic, really. There are currently about 18,000 dinosaur stamp lots for sale on eBay. I had a look yesterday just to see, and they range from singles to sets to very rare items. And I've noticed the number of bidders increasing over time. And I find that my main competition these days is Chinese bidders who have a lot more money than I do. So the rare items, I struggle to get hold of those, but if you want to buy the more common issues, and there's lots of dinosaur stamps out there, then you can get them very cheaply on eBay. And the nice thing about eBay is it does provide a yardstick. It tells you how much everything is worth. It's not using some catalog where people have come up with some idea of what they believe the value is. This is the real world where you have to pay that if you want to buy the stamp. I've got a friend, Tim, in the UK, and he had a Victorian bottle that had a marble in the top of it, and the gas would hold the marble in place. And he was always telling us how much this was worth. And I went on eBay to have a look. He thought it was worth maybe between 50 and 100 pounds. And on eBay, they were selling for about £1 each. So that's how much things are really worth. And that it's very useful to have eBay out there to tell us. So we're going to look at a lot of dinosaur stamps today, and where does the ideas, does the inspiration come from for these stamps? And a lot of the stamps have drawn from famous dinosaur artists over the last 200 years. And at the top here, I've got Zallinger's famous mural at Yale. Rudolf Zallinger was an artist who painted a lot of different dinosaurs and illustrated some books. And in fact, he was the guy who inspired me to become a geologist and a paleontologist. So I owe a great deal to him. At the bottom here, I have a cover that's signed by him with a stamp that also draws from his mural. So that's a first day cover that he signed himself, which is pretty amazing. And it's actually not made out to me because I never got to meet him, but made out to a guy called Paul Johnson. And I have a friend, Paul Johnson, here in Calgary, who was actually a paleontologist, and he's looking out for another one the same as this. So that's where a lot of the stamp designs come from. So what we're going to do next is we're going to look at a whole range of postal items that you might think about if you are collecting thematically. And I've just started off here. This is a piece of artwork. It was not the actual illustration for the stamp. Once this gentleman, Jeffrey Cox, designed this stamp, I wrote to him and asked if he could do me a version of it and paint me a version of it. So this is not the actual design for the stamp, but he's painted a reproduction of the stamp design, excluding the value so that it's legal tender. So first of all, obviously, the most common thing is stamps. So there are all kinds of stamps out there, different sizes, different shapes. We've gone from gummed to self-adhesive these days, which I think has made things a lot more difficult for collectors, which is very disappointing. And there are also stamps in geometric and other shapes. And there are also a lot of that are incorporated into sheets as well. So stamps is obviously where you're going to start off with your collection. Sheets, as I mentioned, first of all, there are sheets which are just sheets of a single item. So up on the top right here, we have an iguanodon from Bernissart in Belgium. And this Belgian set was issued in 1965. And that's a very standard sheet of stamps, like you might buy in the post office. But obviously today, there's a lot more focus on trying to get collectors to buy stamps and to make them as beautiful as possible. So we tend to have these sheets with a huge amount of selvage or just waste paper around the outside, and then just a small picture in the middle. And that picture is the same design that I used to introduce this section. There are also little gimmicks that they put into these sheets. And at the bottom here, we have a set of sheets issued by China a couple of years ago. And what they did within the perforations, inside that circle, you can see they've actually got a perforation in the shape of a dinosaur as well. And there were 6 different sheets, each with a different shaped perforation, just to make sure they can sell them for as much money as possible. There are also booklets and coils. And booklets are, I find it quite tricky because they're difficult to really display. You either fold them out and have the stamps out, in which case they're extremely long, or if you fold them up and close them, then you can't see the stamps inside. Now, normally that's a bit of a shame, but with this Bulgarian issue here on the lower left, the booklet cover has got a lovely dinosaur on it, but when you open the booklet up, for some reason, there's a sheet of cat stamps inside. So probably that would be better avoided if you could. But yeah, booklets are beautiful when they're designed well, but there are also some pretty dubious issues out there as well. Something that I think is undervalued and is very important is postally used letters. And we're still using the stamps for letters. Some of us are. The snail mail, they call it these days. Most people are using email, which is unfortunate. But this is a very legitimate use of stamps. I mean, for a start, it shows that the stamps are genuine and that they are legal tender. And it also gives you a date for when it was sent and when it was valid for issue as well. So, of course, you have some stamps which you just use legally as for sending a letter, like this Japanese issue here on the lower left. And then you also have, you can put a sheet on there as well. And this sheet here, you can see the stamps themselves do not have a dinosaur on them, but I've saved this cover because it has a dinosaur in the selvage. And so what I tend to do is that when new issues come out, I write to dealers in those countries and say, is it possible for you to send me a cover, just a normal cover, with a stamp on it from the first day of issue? There are many, many first day covers out there, but there are many fewer first day envelopes which are just sent as envelopes. I'm just going to point out this one on the lower right here. This is particularly special because it comes from Portugal, and these stamps were only allowed to be used for bulk packages, and they weren't allowed to be used for letters. And I wrote to the museum that issued these stamps, and I said, is it possible to send me a letter? And they said, well, we're not allowed to. And I said, well, I'll take on the risk. And so they sent me this letter, and this could well be the only letter that has these stamps on it that were sent on the first day of issue. And then there's first day covers themselves. And the first day covers, there are thousands and thousands out there. In fact, this issue here on the lower left, the San Marino issue from 1965, there are at least 40 different first day covers that are associated with this set, and they're all different. So you can spend a lot of money trying to put together a full set of the first day covers. They're very beautiful, particularly if they have nice cachets. And the cachets are the picture that's on the first day cover. So here's a cachet of a Stegosaurus on the San Marino one, and this very primitive reptile over here on this cover from Angola. So there are some which are beautiful cachets and some which are very, very business-like. And I find that the early issues, the issues from the 1970s, 1960s, tend to have the most beautiful cachets, which is why I like them best. This is just an example of a really fabulous cover, but it's never sent postally. This was just issued and then just stamped with the postmarks to make it a postally viable item. This is once again from Tonga. There's only two here which have dinosaurs on them. Well, one's an Archaeopteryx, which is a flying dinosaur, and one is a Stegosaurus. But I just think this is a beautiful cover, despite the fact it wasn't really sent through the post. And then, because I'm sitting here in Canada, and I've lived in Canada for the last 20 years, here's a Canadian cover. And what's special about this first day cover is that it has the standard first day of issue stamp on it, which is shown here. But it was actually sent from Drumheller. And Drumheller is the home of the Royal Tyrrell Museum, probably the best dinosaur museum in the world. And on its postmark for the place of issue here, it has a dinosaur and also a hoodoo, which is a kind of rock formation. So to see both of these postmarks on here is very unusual. Another thing that we can see is covers with cachets. So cachets are pictures of dinosaurs. So these covers do not have dinosaur stamps on them, but they've got really nice pictures of dinosaurs. And some of them are very, very official. Once again, this one I think is from the Smithsonian on the left here. This one is from a set of flight stamps to do with flying, and they've used a pterodactyl as the cachet. And some of them they put a picture on there just because they felt like it. And these are actually business issues from China, which they've just happened to put a dinosaur on. But I like the pictures, so I added them to my collection. I put these in because everybody has a birthday, and I'm a very lucky geologist because my birthday is Earth Day. So it's the 22nd of April, which is next week. And so there's a couple of issues which were issued on my birthday. So this one from Tanzania, which also shows a nice example of strangely shaped geometric stamps. They're sort of pyramids with the tops cut off. So that was issued on my birthday a few years ago. And then this one here, the New York World Fair, opened in 1964 on my birthday. So this is a New York first day cover, but they've added the cachet with the dinosaurs afterwards, because this is the famous fair where Sinclair showed off their dinosaurs to the world. So there were no covers issued at the time with dinosaurs on them, but this one, the cachet was added later on. There are also postcards, maximum stamps, and it's very important to differentiate between these. This is a postal card over here, which has a picture of the stamp on it. And then you have the opposite of that, which is a maximum card, which is a picture of a dinosaur, and it has the stamp with a dinosaur on it, which is then postally used. So if you show these in exhibiting, then maximum cards, these cards up here with the stamp on them, have much more cachet and value in your exhibit, whereas showing just this postcard with a picture of the stamp on it has less. And I find that a little bit odd myself, because some of these are very hard to get hold of, but nonetheless, that's the rule of the day. There are also postmarks, and obviously there are not many places named after dinosaurs around the world, but there are a few, and two of them are Dinosaur City, which is in Arizona. And in fact, this bottom postcard here is actually from Dinosaur Caverns, and it's Dinosaur Caverns. It has the Dinosaur City postmark, and this is the Holy Grail. I looked for about 20 years before I finally managed to find this match between the postcard and the Dinosaur City. There are other postmarks for the Dinosaur City as well. So this is a smaller one, this is a small red one, and a large black one, and this was just on a normal postally used cover. And then there's also a place called Dinosaur in Colorado, which is where the Dinosaur National Monument is, and I've written to them several times with stamps on envelopes that I put inside other envelopes, so that they can then send them back to me and I can get more examples of the dinosaur postmark. And then we have these ones here, which are by Sinclair. So these are issued from within a company, Sinclair Oil and Gas, who use the dinosaur as their logo. And so they've actually put this on the stamping mechanism, the franking mechanism that they use when they send out envelopes from their company. And finally, I've got this other one here, which is not exactly a postmark, but is a stamp that was issued for a first flight, and it has a dinosaur on it because the first flight came from Vernal in Utah, where the Dinosaur National Monument is as well. And then there are lots and lots of dinosaur postmarks out there, and my friend's website, which I will mention at the end, has thousands of examples of the different postmarks. The one I want to highlight here, and the ones I've put the red outline, are the ones I think are most important. This little fellow here, this is the print that you use. This is the die plate that you use, the template that you use, that you cover with ink, and then you use that to make the postmark. And this was issued or made for a dinosaur exhibition in South Korea. And I managed to get hold of this. So this is the actual postmark itself. And then this is the original piece of metal that was used to make that postmark. So that's pretty special to have the actual template that was used to make the postmark itself. Errors. Errors are, first of all, they are expensive typically, and I'm sure you all know about things like the Flying Jenny and other issues. So people love errors, and dinosaurs are no exception. So I have some examples here. This set from Poland, I think there's some hint that maybe the person who was printing these may have done some of these on purpose, but there are lots and lots of different errors that are associated with this set. And my favorite that I've put a red outline here is the headless Brontosaurus. You can see here on the left, it's actually missing its head completely. That would be on the next stamp. We also have stamps that are missing the value. This one at the top here is missing the value. The one on the right here is missing the black. The one down here is printed tête bêche in some way, so it's actually you can see that the dinosaur is upside down compared to the value, and then some we've had a big shift in some of the inks as well. There was a Stegosaurus, this Stegosaurus here with no value. This was quite interesting that Stanley Gibbons managed to get a sheet of 10 of these, and they sold them off one by one. And the first one sold for £10. The second one they sold for 20, the third one for 30. There were 10 altogether in the sheet. And I got the 9th one. So I paid £90 for this Stegosaurus with a missing value on there. So there are other errors as well. It's not just Poland. And I've got this little green dinosaur here from Taiwan, who's supposed to be printed on top of there. We have another headless dinosaur here. Half his head is missing from the US. We have some color shifts as well, which these are from this same Zallinger mural that you saw earlier on in the presentation. And then this very odd issue here from Iran, where that somehow it's got an extra green layer on part of the stamp, which just gives it this very odd appearance. And then I put this one in here. This is from that same 1989 issue. You can see that my version here is missing the black, so it's got no value, no USA on there. And just to give you an idea, these are selling for about $300 or $400 these days. That sheet without the values. And then another area that's a real favorite of mine is original artwork. And you're very lucky if you get hold of any original artwork. You have to be very careful online. The one time I got scammed was by somebody selling some original dinosaur artwork, and I fell for it, somebody in Belgium. And I actually managed to find out the bank that they used and contacted the bank, and they said, no, we can't give you your money back. Of course not, because the money belongs to him. So just as a warning, you have to be a bit careful of scammers. But nonetheless, these are some beautiful artwork here. That Tonga issue I showed you earlier, this is some of the artwork for it with the Stegosaurus. And then this one here from Mali, where they didn't add the value or anything like that. This was just the painting that was done for the design for the stamp. And then you can also buy painted covers. And I've got several examples here. People just, they get the covers with the stamps, and they've had the first day cover, first day of issue stamp put onto them, and then they just paint a nice picture on it afterwards. Sometimes they actually leave the postmark in white afterwards, although they haven't done that here. And the one I'm going to point out here is this one here with the Stegosaurus on it, which is a British cover. Has a British dinosaur stamp on it as well. It is a first day of issue. And this was painted by a gentleman called Brian Cool. And he normally paints ships at sea and ships at war. And his paintings have gone for up to £20,000. But he also painted these dinosaurs, which apparently were for a nephew or a cousin or something like that. And I managed to pick a few of these up on eBay. And I just think they're very nice. They're literally almost like cachets. They're just hand-painted cachets. But he's not a paleontologist by any means, but he's certainly reproduced some nice images. And then we have Cinderellas as well. And Cinderellas, for those of you that don't know, are the unofficial, they're the non-official issues. So these are not real stamps. And there are all kinds. There are some to, this one here at the top is to celebrate a kind of a fair that happens every year in France. This one here was issued with the one on the top right in blue there was issued by the Chinese. And I don't know much about this one, but you do occasionally see it coming up for sale, but it's definitely not a real issue. This one here is from the selvage of a Korean sheet. And this one here I find funny because this is not a real issue from Dufar. You can tell that it's not really on this first day cover because the postmarks are only on the sheet and they don't overlap onto the first day cover. And this was issued in 1980. And this was a long time before inkjet printers were invented, which is how this dinosaur was printed on there. So there's definitely a lot wrong with that alleged first day cover. And then there's other items out there as well. So I have a set of jigsaws for you from Switzerland here, which were for a stamp issue. I have an issue here with a fossil actually in the cover. So this is a fossil fish that's been inserted into the cover. And then the only hollow card, which is one of those things where you kind of let your eyes unfocus, possibly a couple of glasses of wine, and then you can see an image inside of a dinosaur standing on a pedestal. And that comes from Belgium, if I remember correctly. And then there's 3D issue here from South Africa, which also comes with a set of 3D glasses. That works very nicely. Some calendars here as well. And then this is what my brother bought me for a big birthday recently, which was an issue from the UK where they'd had the stamps framed as well. So there's lots of stuff out there. So we're going to move on now to talk about a history of dinosaurs on stamps. So we're going to go back to China's greatest achievement, and that greatest achievement is that they issued the first ever dinosaur on a stamp. So well done, China. Despite all the other things that we're not so sure about, you did dinosaur stamp enthusiasts a great favor. And what I love about this set is not just the fact that it was this very simple design. This was not multicolored. This was not designed specifically to kind of like attract unwary customers. It was really quite a scientifically valid issue with the skeleton here of Lufengaosaurus. And I just love this beautiful, friendly dinosaur on the first day cover with his tail dragging along the ground, which obviously they don't believe that anymore. And you can also find these occasionally on used envelopes as well. So they were definitely being used as legal stamps. Interestingly, the first fossil mammal predates the first dinosaur, then goes back to 1951, and that's from India, and that's based on an original painting by Margaret Flint shown up there. So that's the first stamp, but there was also some postal issues from prior to that. So we've already talked about Sinclair and the Sinclair, where they were sending them out from their offices with these tags on them. And they issued 2 sets of Cinderella dinosaur stamp sets. And apparently the first one, which was issued in 1935, and I should really bow to Fran Adams, who I see is in the presentation, because he knows a 1,000 times more about these Sinclair issues than I do. But apparently when they issued this at gas stations across America, they gave away 1 million albums the first week that they were giving them away. So people were going in to fill up with gas to get the stamps, but they gave the albums for free, and at least 1 million people got hold of an album in the very first week, which just shows how popular dinosaurs are. So this is a Sinclair dinosaur shown here, but we're going to go even further back in time now. So that was about 1935 for our issue, but this is 1932 now. And this is another Cinderella that was painted by John Heber Stansfield. And he painted a whole sheet of stamps, Cinderella stamps, that were designed to try and promote Utah as a tourist destination. And one of them had a dinosaur on it. So this Cinderella stamp is the earliest dinosaur stamp. Obviously, it's a Cinderella that I know of. But there's more. The oldest postal dinosaur, as far as I'm aware, is this one. So this is a postally used item. It has this postal stationery here. So we can see that it has the 2 cents prepaid postal stationery. So it's a real item. And it has this picture on it, which is advertising the Torrance Lime and Fertilizer Company. And this was sent in 1922 on March the 31st. And if you look very carefully next to the postmark, and I've zoomed in here at the top, you can see there's a little wibbly wobbly dinosaur on here. So the original picture that was put on here only had the mammals and the Neanderthal man on there, but they added the dinosaur on for more cachet, and that makes it that much more exciting. And I can tell you that I've been offered over $5,000 for this item, but I would never get rid of it. And the funny thing is that the way I got hold of it in the first place, I wrote to a dealer in America to ask him about some stamps from Afghanistan, some dinosaur stamps. And he wrote back to me and said, no, I don't have any of those, but I do have this old cover here, and you can have it for free. And so it was actually a gift from a dealer in the first place. And it's probably one of my most treasured dinosaur stamp possessions. So because I was interested, I went and looked further into Torrance Lime and Fertilizer. And it turns out that there were fossil beds discovered by 2 schoolboys near Los Angeles in 1921. And they developed it as a fertilizer quarry. And they were mining this marl and all of these bones that had lots of phosphate in them that made really good fertilizer. And the quarry was managed by a guy called Samuel Mouse Purple. And he brought in many famous paleontologists because they were finding all these fossils here. And the fossils included whales, dolphins, sharks, mammoth, and even the teeth of saber-toothed tigers. And what he used to do was that he'd get these paleontologists, and he had a special set of bleachers that he'd sit them in, and he'd get a stick of dynamite and he would throw it into the quarry, and obviously the dynamite would blow up, explode, and shatter a few rocks, and they'd go down and have a look. And there's apparently one of the times he did this, a huge boulder actually blew out of the quarry over the heads of the paleontologists and went through the roof of his office. So it was a bit of a wild character, Mr. Purple, but he obviously added to the history of paleontology. So next what I'm going to do is to talk a little bit about dinosaur stamp evolution from the early days to the late days. So we're going to start off back in the 60s. So 58 was the very first dinosaur stamp. And in the 60s, we saw this kind of real flower power time. And there were these beautiful stamps. People took their time. There was nothing really tacky about them. They were just very, very well designed. And that, as I said earlier, that's why these are mostly my favorites. And you can see here I have some examples from the Congo, some really lovely triangular dinosaur stamps here. They're actually funny, these stamps, because they're in pairs. They're obviously the 2 triangles together. And one of them is a dinosaur and one of them is a mammal. So some of them have whales on them, some have tigers on them and all sorts of other animals, but they also have the dinosaurs on them from back in 1968. And then we talked about this one already from the US. And then this beautiful issue from Lesotho, which was designed by Jennifer Toombs, who is a very famous dinosaur artist from the United Kingdom. My first set of dinosaur stamps also comes from the 60s, and that was this Poland issue. So we've already seen some of the errors from this set. So I'm just showing you what the whole set looks like now. So you can buy this set for about $2 online. So it's readily available from 1965. And I actually contacted the artist, Andre Heinrich, when he was still alive. I believe he's still alive now, actually, but he was, I got these several of the original artworks from him back about 10 years ago, and that includes this Tyrannosaurus, and I also have the long neck, the Brachiosaurus, which I've managed to get as the original artwork. And he was famous not just for doing the stamps, but did many banknotes for the country as well. And you find that a lot of the stamp designers turn their hand to other things as well. Oh yeah, and here we are. This is a commissioned artwork sign that I had painted for me by Jennifer Toombs from the UK for that Lesotho issue, just to reproduce it on a larger scale, and because I just think it's such a beautiful piece of artwork. And these footprints really are there in Lesotho, so you can go out and see the outcrops with the footprints, which I've been to visit in the past as well. So then from the mid-1960s, we also had what are called dunes. And any thematic collector out there worth their salt will know all about dunes, because these were produced allegedly by some of the trucial states, Fujairah, by other countries around from in that Middle Eastern area, small countries. Myanmar was another example where they produced these stamps. And what had actually happened was there was a guy called Finbar Kenny from the United States. And in 1963, he contacted these Arab states and said, "Can I market these stamps for you?" He said, "I'll give you $5 for every one that I market. And so you'll get the money for it, for your kingdom. And in return, I get to sell the stamps." And he sold literally tens of thousands of these issues around the world. And you can find everything from questionable nudes to dinosaurs, to Olympics, to scouts, to prime ministers and presidents. The stamps that had nothing, the content of the stamps, the subject had nothing to do with the Middle East, but yet he produced all of these issues. And some people believe that they're real, they count as legal issues, and most people believe that they don't. But when you see something like this, which is original artwork for one of these Fujairah issues from the 1960s, then I couldn't turn it down. I had to say yes. And there's the stamp itself on a special label there as well. And this is some of the worst dunes that are out there. So they call them dunes, obviously, because they're from the Middle East. So this set here is actually a little bit surreal. So we have tigers and zebras on there. So anybody who collects animals may well have this in their collection. Guinea pigs. And then alongside the guinea pigs, we also have Brontosaurus, Stegosaurus, and a Triceratops down there at the bottom. So they're all rubbing shoulders with each other on this lovely sheet, which I think is from 1972. We also have this Yemeni sheet here, which has got probably the worst picture of a dinosaur I've ever seen on it. It's really pushing it. There are a couple of other terrible ones, and that's pretty bad. And then this issue from Myanmar, which looks like the dinosaurs have got icicles hanging off them, which is also pretty unusual. So we move on into the 70s and 80s, the time of new romantics, disco fever, some really funky issues. This is a nice issue from Japan down here on the lower left, where they really went to town on the first day cover. These are from Equatorial Guinea, these lovely Stegosauruses. And then we've got issues from Congo and from Cuba as well. So nicely done. They're brightly colored, and it looks like they're having a good time. There were some more serious issues from this time as well. And this is a beautiful issue by Sheila Noas. And once again, I got her to do this piece of artwork for me here, which is shown on the upper right, because I love this issue. But it's just this beautiful geometric design that she's used with the dinosaurs around the stamp issue in the center. Just beautiful. Also in the late 1980s, we saw the breakup of the Soviet Union, and people saw potential for making money out of stamps. So one of the things that they did is they got these incredibly cheap stamps that were allegedly from Russia. I'm not even sure if the stamps were real. And Clive Feigenbaum, who is another infamous character in stamp history, he was behind this scam where he literally just went along and stamped all of these stamps with overprints as though they were being used in some other countries in the Soviet Union, former Soviet Union. I think none of these are even Cinderellas. They are just total counterfeits that he made to make money. And there are tens of thousands of these. And I was kind of like trying to get hold of a lot of the dinosaur ones. And little did I realize that for any other thematic collector, you name it, they're there. That there are ones with lions on them. There are ones with trains on them. There are ones with athletes on them. There are many, many out there, and I just don't think they are worth collecting. And I'm saying that I have quite a lot myself, so I'm really a bit, I'm not to be trusted. So at the same time, several of the Russian former states also issued a whole bunch of sheets, which are also not legal tender. You can find them on occasional envelopes, but it looks like the envelopes aren't really legal tender either. And there's at least 1,025 stamps. I've counted them up because I have all of these sheets. I got sucked in, but they are probably all counterfeit as well. But I do like the images on there, and you know, there's some nice pictures. So I kind of use that to justify why I wasted my money. Okay, on into the 90s, and the 90s, everything got a bit techno and a bit computer generated, and a little bit more carefully designed, and a lot of very scientifically accurate designs as well. So there are some really nice issues out there, and I've just got some examples here. This one at the bottom here is nice. This is from the 1991 issue from the UK, and what you can see here, this is from Maidstone, and Maidstone actually has a dinosaur as a supporter of its coat of arms. So when it has the coat of arms, you have to show the iguanodon as one of the supporters of that, along with a lion on the other side. But it's nice. And that was because the first iguanodon fossil was found just outside Maidstone, actually found by Mantell, but not by Mantell, by his wife. But he published it, and it was named Iguanodon mantelli, but it was his wife who found the teeth while their carriage wheel was being repaired. So at this time in the 90s, there were also a whole bunch of African issues. And once again, this is not just dinosaurs, but I'm just showing you some of the dinosaurs here. So these, once again, they do appear on envelopes. So it is possible to use them. You can buy them in the country, but they were really designed purely for collectors. So you can see that there's a lot of them there. I've just got a few examples. But there's over 1,000 stamps that were issued in this wave that went from about 91 to 95. Covered Africa, it also covered the Caribbean, and the fateful Caribbean issue, one of them from Antigua, was that one that first sucked me back into collecting dinosaurs on stamps. So there was some good that came out of it. So in the 2000s, there continued to be some really nice issues issued by some of the kind of more official countries. I'm just showing examples here from Australia. So Australia does some beautiful stamp issues, really, really nice ones here. So you can see that beautiful artwork as well. And the artwork here was done by James Gurney, and who did the Dinotopia books as well. And this is a particularly nice one, because if you write to him nicely and pay him $60, then he will send you a first day cover, which he has done the artwork for your very own dinosaur at the bottom. So yeah, everybody can have one. You just have to write to him and ask, and you can do that through his own website. So then another bad company reared its ugly head in 2002, and that's Stamper Asia. And so what they do is that they're in Lithuania, and they contact a country and say, we will produce 10 sets of stamps for you this year, and we will pay you $5 or $10 for each set. So then the country says that's fine, they sign off, and then Stamper Asia goes crazy, and they issue sets, they issue special sheets, they issue fake errors and everything like that. But because they've got the deal with the country, technically these are real stamps, and technically you could use these in the country of issue. And the agreement is there with the postal authorities in those countries. So I counted up, I went online just to have a look at Stamper Asia's website. There were 1,007 different dinosaur sheets. And if you average those out to about 12 euros a time, $15 a time, that's going to be about $15,000 that you'd have to spend just to collect these semi-legal issues. So I made a decision right at the beginning with these that I wasn't going to collect them. So I have a few years at the beginning when they were issuing them, but no longer. And they are still issuing literally thousands of sets every year. Once again, dinosaurs is just a drop in the ocean. They're issuing all sorts. So I just wanted to shout out to the UK while we're going through, and I've mentioned already, you can probably tell I'm from England originally, but these are just some fun examples from some of the dinosaur sets. So the dinosaur set in 1991, we have some funny name places in England, just like you do in America as well. And so some of the postmarks that you could get for this set were from the Lizard in Cornwall. The House of Lords was a very popular one because I think that's quite funny actually. This one here was they were having a crime spree at that time, so there's "Take a Bite Out of Crime" was another postmark on there, which is fantastic as well. So these are two other more recent issues. I showed this one in a frame earlier. This is from last year. And then this one's from just a couple of years ago as well. And I put this one in here. This was from a Darwin issue in the lower right. And what's nice about this is that this was you can see there's a huge color shift on this. But because it's from a Darwin issue and not from a dinosaur issue, I picked this up for £6 or £7. So it's absolutely ridiculously low price for something that's such a cool error here. With this is an Archaeopteryx skeleton at the bottom here with a magpie at the top. And the Archaeopteryx skeleton is split between the two halves of the stamp here. So let's have a look at a few embarrassments now. And we're starting off here with this one from Fantasia. So this is a Fantasia issue from Granada, which has a dinosaur in it. There was apparently several dinosaurs in the Fantasia film. We'll start off with more African sets. And one of the things that the Africans do is not only do they issue these semi-fake sets, but the semi-fake sets will have a bird on them, they'll have a scout on them, and they'll have a dinosaur on them, just to make sure that all three of those collecting themes all have to buy that set. So it's not just bad enough that they issue these fake issues, but they issue them with more than one theme attached to them as well. So I particularly like this one down here, which is dinosaurs and mushrooms, because obviously they are heavily compatible, those two topics. There are lots of Disney issues out there, maybe 150 different Disney dinosaurs out there. So including this one here, is this Scrooge McDuck, I think maybe, with a dinosaur out of an egg. Toy Story with obviously Toy Story had the Rex the dinosaur in it. We've got another Fantasia issue here, which I actually think is quite a nice stamp, despite the fact that it's pretty ropey, and that's Huxley Ranadon, the dinosaur. And then there's lots of Mickey Mouse issues as well with dinosaurs on them. I said good things about Australia, but the bad thing about Australia is that of all the people who are trying to really screw money out of the thematic collectors, I think they're probably the worst, because if you buy an Australian issue and you buy every cover, including the ones with the coins embedded in them, the prestige folder, the ones with the gold coin embedded in them, then for an average issue from Australia, you're paying about $360. So unfortunately, I am not able to keep my sets complete because I just cannot afford to spend that much on every issue that comes out. Then we got gold sheets as well. This is also a complete fakey world. And the thing is, you just never see these postally used. You see them with a fake postmark on them, which was put on there. These ones, I think, were issued by Feigenbaum as well back in the day. And Feigenbaum definitely had the license to issue stamps for Easdale Island and for Lundy as well. So he would issue these gold sheets for them and try to pass them off as legal tender. But I don't really think that any of these really count as being postally valid. And they can be very expensive. And then I just put in a few more very ugly dinosaurs. I apologize to you, images on the screen, but this is the worst plesiosaur I've ever seen, top right. Kind of snake with little flippers on it. This one here looks like it's a kind of hand puppet over on the top left there. We've mentioned this one already from Yemen, the Conquest of Mars, which apparently involved this iguanodon thumbing a ride. And then this one here is also from Equatorial Guinea, from the same set as the sad plesiosaur. Just going to step aside and talk briefly about Canada's highs and lows. And so this was a lovely set that was issued by Canada a few years ago. And I was lucky enough to get in touch with the artist, Sergei Krasovsky, who is a great dinosaur artist. And he did this picture for me. It was just a beautiful thing. And he did some other pictures for me as well from this set. And I'm so glad that I got in touch with them because they're just beautifully done. But Canada also has some shame, because Canada issued a set of World Heritage Site stamps. And they included Dinosaur Provincial Park, which is a World Heritage Site that's about 2 hours away from me as I sit here in Calgary. And they illustrated it using this picture here. So this Dinosaur Provincial Park, World Heritage Site. And it turned out that this picture is not from Dinosaur Provincial Park. This picture is actually from Willow Creek near Drumheller. So it's from about 100 kilometers away from the park. And so the error was quickly realized, and they recalled all the stamps on July the 6th and destroyed them, and then reissued the stamps on August the 21st with a new image. So I managed to get hold of a first day cover, and I also managed to get hold of this postal card as well. So this postal card is now selling for about $800, and because I had my issue, I got it for $1.20. So that's how much it was originally issued for before they realized this horrendous mistake. So that's the error on the left, and that's the revised one on the right here. Now, the one thing I'm really sad about, the post office had a kind of advertising sheet on their desk under glass, which showed this original incorrect issue. And I begged the postmistress to give it to me. And she said she just couldn't. She said she would lose her job if she did that. So I have one more thing to say about this set, is that in 1972, Canada Post issued this postcard of the hoodoos in Drumheller as a postal card with a small embossed stamp on the back. So they actually issued this postcard correctly and then used almost exactly the same photograph for a completely incorrect issue for somewhere else. So they should have known better, because in 1972 they did. Okay, let's finish off with some favorites here. This one here, I went through a phase of writing to a lot of artists to try and get hold of original artwork for the stamps, which was very unsuccessful. But I wrote to the lady who designed this set here and said, do you have any of the artwork? And she said, no, I don't have any of the artwork because I had to give it to the Moroccans. And I never reproduce a piece of art twice. And so I looked at her Facebook site, and she had lots of letters from people who drew pictures on the envelopes. So I drew a picture on the envelope and wrote to her and said, I hope you like the picture. And when she wrote back to me, she sent me this cover here, where she has reproduced the stamp on the cover for me. So this went through standard post. It could have been ripped in half, and it is just the most beautiful piece of artwork you've ever seen. And it's got bonus plants in the background that were different to the original stamp. It's just wonderful. So that's courtesy of this lady. So it cost me the price of a stamp, basically, which is just unbelievable. I've got some hugely rare items in my collection. This one here from Mauritania. It's not actually, the dinosaur is in the selvage here, but this is the only time I've ever seen this first day cover in 30 years that I've been collecting. I only ever saw it once, and I had to buy quite a few other covers along with it to get hold of that one, but it was worth it. This cover here is just beautiful, from Saint-Thomé. And what's beautiful about it is not just the stamps are quite nice, but the postmark is just beautiful that ties them together. And then over here on the left, we have this issue from Japan, which you've seen earlier, but from 1977. And this was the special presentation pack with an embossed metallic little square of artwork in it, which that I've seen twice in my life. And then I've seen it once on a first day cover as well. So also very rare. These ones here from San Marino, I saw this postcard for sale, and at a stamp fair, just this one postcard. It's a set of nine stamps altogether. And so I looked and looked and looked to find the rest of the postcards. I wrote to a bunch of dealers in San Marino who said, no, they don't exist. And then about, I don't know, 15 years later, somebody posted a set of the postcards online, and I got a set of the postcards. So I looked for 15 years to find the rest of the postcards to go with this one that I've been holding in my hot little hand. Moving down now to that one from Belgium. This is from the communal administration in Bernissart, which is where the iguanodons were found that they used for the stamp. And this particular administration, they use an iguanodon as their signature, as it were, on the envelopes as well. So that was really nice. And then this one here from Niger, I went to a stamp fair, and there was a thematic company from France, and they had all these first day covers that I'd never seen just there. And I was literally grabbing them, and other people were grabbing them off the table. It was like a feeding frenzy when everyone saw these covers, which had just never come out. They were called something like Philex or Philume or something, and they were based in Paris, and they went bust a couple of years later. So that was just pretty much your only chance to get hold of some of these first day covers. And then this one here is just my favorite set of dinosaur stamps. The issue, the pictures are stolen really from, once again, from Zallinger, from paintings by Zallinger, but nonetheless, they've been beautifully reproduced, and they're reproduced by the Shamir brothers, who are Israeli stamp designers. And then I went to Japan and I was looking around in Japan trying to find something interesting from a dinosaur stamp point of view. And they had this folder with these booklets in it. And this folder, once again, that's the only time I've ever seen it for sale. So a bit of serendipity there. And I'm going to finish off with a humorous couple of covers here. So we've got The Dangers of Smoking from Germany, this cover here with a dinosaur with a cigarette, because that is how the dinosaurs died out, apparently. I have this Don't Choose Extinction issue, which was only from last year from the United Nations. And then this issue down here, it's from the States, and I'll just read it out to you in case you can't see it. It's a dinosaur talking to his comrades and saying, "The picture's pretty bleak, gentlemen. The world's climates are changing, the mammals are taking over, and we all have a brain about the size of a walnut." So that's just classic. Anyway, just to summarize, and I'm summarizing here, putting USA and Russia together, which is not an easy thing to do, except thematically. Collecting can be wonderful. The nice thing about Thematic is you can choose what to specialize in. And my recommendation is don't be a completist. Don't try and get every dinosaur stamp because it's going to hurt you financially and probably emotionally as well. Just choose what you like and stick to it. Go to eBay, Delcamp and Hipstamp, a great source of material and a price check. And there's nothing that really beats that moment when you've spent years searching for something and then finally it turns up online. And I'm just going to share two of my stamp highlights moments here. This is my first exhibit that I ever did, and I recommend everybody giving it a go. I had such fun putting it together, which was for Caltepex here in Calgary. And then this year I was in the UK and actually in the Strand, and I popped into Stanley Gibbons and I said, "Look, I'm a thematic collector. I'm obsessive about dinosaurs. And is there any chance that I can get to hold the 1 cent British Guiana magenta?" And they said, "Yeah, we've got it upstairs. We'll just go and get it." And I got that. So that's me holding the 1 cent magenta. So I'm holding £8.5 million in my hand. Anyway, thank you very much for listening. And I'm happy to take questions.
So that was a lot of fun. Thank you so much. That was just delightful. We appreciate your time.
It's my pleasure. It's lovely to be able to share some of my collection. And I do recommend for all of you out there, and everyone says it, but I tried exhibiting. I haven't had much time to do it the last couple of years, but it's very, very rewarding.